Howdy again. Here we are. So another exciting, hopefully exciting video for you. We're going to move closer to what's called in Japanese culture Ikigai. I don't know if you've heard of it, but Ikigai is about identifying one's passion, mission, vocation, and profession. Nice. So Ikigai is a Japanese word whose meaning translates roughly into a reason for being. I'll tell you that Viktor Frankl, who I mentioned earlier, highlights the importance of that. Again, he was a prisoner in Auschwitz and Dachau. And he talked about how people came to their death, and what he identified is when individuals lost their meaning in life within 24 hours, they were dead. I've had a similar observation that purpose and meaning are critical to life. So we're going to have a way to identify your reason for being, which encompasses joy, a sense of purpose and meaning, and a feeling of well-being. The word derives from iki, meaning life, and kai, meaning the realization of hopes and expectations, which is really nice. It's the realization of hopes and expectations. So you're going to have the opportunity to find out what your Ikigai is. So the way this diagram works is, and you can see it on the video now, is if you look at the top in the first circle, it starts with what you love. I know there are many people out there, including myself at one point in my life, that I was really doing a job. I wasn't doing what I loved. Followed by, when you go to the right, what the world needs. That actually reminds me of something from A Course in Miracles that's been important in my life. Our function on earth is healing. Our function in heaven is creation. So what does the world need right now? And I'll again suggest to you, we're talking about major healing that needs to take place. If you look at the history of humanity, what you'll find is a history of war. At the bottom, what you get paid for. So we're drifting into making a living. So at this point, I would suggest to you that our primary purpose is not to make a living, but to create a life. At the same time, we can make a living. And we'll see how that moves to the center and becomes Ikigai. And what you're good at. So what are your talents? And how have other people really discouraged you away from your talents? We all have unique talents. Howard Gardner, in his book Multiple Intelligences, really shook up the educational world, or the world of schooling, when he said there are multiple intelligences. There's not one. What we typically call IQ is linguistic intelligence. You know, there's also kinesthetic intelligence, like people who are really gifted dancers or actors or whatever. Mechanical intelligence. I know a mechanic that's particularly gifted with auto mechanics. So when you move more toward the center of the diagram, what you love and what the world needs establishes your mission. So that intersection is your mission. What you love, what the world needs. So if you start on the outside and say, what do I love and what does the world need, you now have a mission. And then it goes to what the world needs and what you get paid for is called vocation. This is in the world, how you make a living. It's a vocation. What the world needs, what you get paid for. And as you go up on Ikigai, what you are good at and what you get paid for is a profession. So whatever that might be. The thing that's interesting about that is that there are Scandinavian countries, which, by the way, are always high in world surveys on happiness. They're in the top 10 because there's not a lot of discrepancy in income. It's all a profession. And followed by what you're good at and what you love is your passion. So what we're looking at is passion, mission, vocation, and profession. Now, when all four of those merge, you are an Ikigai. So I'm going to go back and read this description again. Ikigai is a Japanese word whose meaning translates roughly into a reason for being, encompassing joy, a sense of purpose and meaning, and a feeling of well-being. Well-being. So by working through Ikigai, we're in a state of well-being, which, by the way, is not sickness. And that's what Viktor Frankl's pointing to. So I'm going to go back through and ask you these questions and give you a few minutes to reflect and encourage you to continue this work. What do you love? So my words of encouragement, go ahead and do what you really love. If you're in the drudgery of a job, you might want to consider doing your work. What does the world need? Again, my suggestion is healing. And of course, there are many ways to go about that. We're not necessarily talking about psychotherapy or energy healing or whatever. We're talking about healing in a big sense. Lots of YouTubes, free, through Hay House and Humanities Team and the Shift Network, many of which deal with healing. In fact, I just watched one called the Hay House Healing Summit. It was very good. So, what does the world need? What do you get paid for based on what the world needs? What would be that work? In contrast to doing a job that's drudgery. And what are you good at? What are your natural talents? So if you loop back through it, we're talking about passion, mission, vocation, and profession all merging into a sense of well-being. If you need more information, you can go on the internet and get all you want. So, good luck. So here's a 12-step approach or a 12-day approach related to Ikigai. So you can continue to work on that. Day 1, here's the question. If you could instantly manifest one thing in your life, what would it be? So the word manifest to me means to make real, to bring into existence. You could substitute if you could instantly create one thing in your life, what would it be? So I'll pause a little bit and give you time to think about that. Day 2, what would I be do have if it were impossible to fail? When I was in the classroom and described the different grades in the classroom, my classroom was all about success and not failure. I said, when you get to the letter F, it does not stand for failure, it stands for feedback. There are many, quote, successful people in the world that have gone through multiple, quote, failures. So also notice the arrangement. What would I be? That's what we've been talking about. Do and have if it were impossible to fail. And by the way, if you're a being, it's impossible to fail. In fact, it becomes effortless. What would I be, do, and have if money didn't exist? It's an interesting question. Take money out of the equation. And of course, going back to Ikigai, you're now talking about purpose and meaning and mission, etc. What would I like to change about the world? Now, I'll go to Gandhi on that one. Whatever it is you want to change, be that change. Be the change you want to see in the world. What makes me feel the most empowered? And why is that? So if we look at the word power and go back to one of the earliest videos, power means able to be who and what we really are, to be able to transform. And one of the other abilities we have, it's primary, we can change our mind. We can change our mind. Again, it's called neuroplasticity. We can change the program. What activities bring me extraordinary focus and timeless expansion? Timelessness. When people are engaged in art, the artists that I observe, if I were to ask them how much time they've been working, they would have no clue. It's timeless expansion and extraordinary focus. What part of myself do I share with all others? And why do I share that? What's important about that? That may lead you into Ikigai and what am I good at? What do you admire? What do you envy and why? Actually, the question is, what do I admire? And what do I envy and why? And by the way, make a clear distinction right now. Jealousy is I want something you have, which can be highly motivating. Envy, I don't want you to have it, so I'm going to sabotage and destroy it. So really the question for me is what am I jealous of? Who admires me and what for? You probably don't hear that often, so you might want to ask, is there something about me you admire? Where do I see myself in 5 years? There is a man whose name is Neville Goddard, who was around in the early part of the 20th century, I believe. And what he talks about is the power of imagination. Imagine it as if it's already happening now. What inspires my infinite curiosity? One way I go about dealing with that question is go back to my childhood. What were my fascinations? I've actually journaled those fascinations. And last, day 12, what am I most afraid of? Fear will get in the way. And if you go back to the video on fear, a reading from Marianne Williamson, you'll see there is nothing to fear. So 12-day purpose exercise. Enjoy. Wish you success.